Have you ever wondered what loyalty and love truly looks like, especially when it comes from 7 men who live under the brightest spotlight on Earth? Tonight, we're pulling back the velvet curtain to explore a side of BTS that fans rarely get to see, the quiet, fragile, deeply human world of how they love. Because here's the shocker. The most loyal member of BTS is absolutely not the one you're thinking of, not even close. Before we start this countdown, picture this. 7 young men growing up while the whole world watches, juggling fame, exhaustion, and dreams bigger than stadiums, yet trying to protect the tiny, delicate universe of their own. Hearts. What does loyalty mean in a life where every minute is scheduled? How do you stay faithful when millions want a piece of you? And which member carries a devotion so unwavering it will completely rewrite your perception of him? Some of them love like fire, some love like poetry, some love quietly, almost invisibly, until you realize their loyalty runs deeper than the ocean. But only one stands at the very top. So take a breath, clear your expectations, and get ready for a ranking that will shock even the most diehard army. Welcome to Top 7 BTS in Love. The most loyal member is not who you think. Are you ready to find out the truth? Number 7. Taehyung, the velvet-hearted dreamer. Taehyung's love style is like stepping into a vintage film. Warm, nostalgic, and tinted with a softness that feels almost unreal. Even though he lands at number 7, it's not because he lacks loyalty. If anything, Taehyung is the type of person who loves with a sincerity so delicate that it sometimes gets misunderstood. His loyalty shows up in the smallest gestures, the late-night messages to friends checking if they've eaten, the quiet moments when he chooses to stay beside someone even when he doesn't speak, the way he expresses affection not with grand declarations, but with presence. For Taehyung, love is a world built out of little things. But why is he here at number 7? It's because his love, even though genuine, is often shaped by his deeply artistic nature. He's a free soul, a daydreamer who sees love through a lens of poetry and painting. This makes him loyal in spirit, but not always consistent in action. He feels deeply, but he also drifts emotionally, not because he's unfaithful, but because he's constantly pulled by his own imagination, his thoughts, his creativity, and the emotional tides that guide his life. People close to him often describe him as someone who can be both incredibly warm and suddenly distant, not out of coldness, but because he gets lost in his internal universe. Sometimes, his loyalty is expressed through silence rather than words, through a comforting hug rather than a promise. But silence, as beautiful as it is, can be misunderstood in relationships. And Taehyung knows this. He knows that he loves in a way that not everyone can immediately understand. In interviews, he's mentioned wanting a simple, quiet life with someone who gets his personality, someone who understands that just because he's quiet, it doesn't mean he's detached. Someone who knows that his loyalty isn't loud, it's gentle. His past actions also show that he values friendships and emotional connections deeply. He's protective of the people he cares about and becomes surprisingly firm when someone he loves is hurt or mistreated. That protective loyalty is one of his strongest traits. But romantic loyalty requires emotional availability, and Taehyung's reflective nature can sometimes make him unpredictable. One day, he's sending heartfelt messages at 3 a.m. The next, he's lost in photography, jazz, or wandering the city alone trying to breathe in inspiration. And yet, despite this emotional complexity, Taehyung is the kind of partner who would never betray someone he loves. He might struggle with expression, he might get caught up in life's abstractions, but when he commits with a heart that is steadfast, kind, and overwhelmingly sincere. Taehyung may be number 7 in the ranking, but he's number 1 for people who crave a romantic who loves like art, soft, deep, and unforgettable. Now, who's waiting at number 6? Ready to continue? Number 6, Jimin, the intense lover wrapped in softness. Jimin's approach to love is a whirlwind of tenderness, intensity, and emotional honesty that can disarm even the coldest heart. He may be radiant on stage, magnetic, graceful, and confident, but when it comes to love, he shifts into someone far more vulnerable, far more human, far more real than the world ever sees. Jimin loves with his entire being. He is the type who listens with his full attention, remembers the smallest details, and notices when someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. His loyalty is emotional, almost spiritual, because to Jimin, love is not a game or a passing moment. It's a commitment to understanding someone's soul. But the reason he sits at number 6 is not a lack of loyalty. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Jimin's loyalty burns so intensely that it sometimes becomes overwhelming even for himself. He invests so deeply that he risks losing parts of his own emotional grounding. He is the kind of person who will drop everything to comfort someone crying, who will set aside his own needs just to make sure the other person feels secure, who will say, "I'm okay," even when he's clearly exhausted. This emotional self-sacrifice makes him an incredibly loyal partner, but it also means he struggles when love becomes too heavy. And Jimin knows this. He has often talked about his internal battles, how he sometimes wears a smile while carrying burdens silently. In love, this transforms into a pattern of being too loyal, too giving, too invested, even when it hurts him. This doesn't make him unreliable. It makes him human. But emotional intensity can create misunderstandings. Jimin expects the same level of devotion he gives. He doesn't say it directly. He would never demand it, but his heart hopes for it quietly. And when he doesn't receive that equally deep emotional presence, he spirals into self-doubt, wondering if he did something wrong. That quiet self-blame is what places him at number 6. He loves with fire, but he also questions himself with that same fire. Yet when we look at his friendships, his loyalty becomes undeniable. He's the first to comfort a member, the first to hug someone who's struggling, the first to shed tears when someone else is hurting. Imagine being loved by someone like that, someone who feels your emotions as if they're his own, someone who adapts himself to make you comfortable, someone who wants to protect your smile even when his own is shaking. Jimin's loyalty isn't the calm, steady kind. It's the dramatic, passionate, heart-on-the-line loyalty that feels like a love letter written in soft handwriting and folded carefully into your pocket. Some people crave stability and structure in a partner. Others crave warmth, affection, and a connection that feels electric. For those who crave that emotional electricity, Jimin's brand of loyalty is perfection. He might sit at number 6 on this list, but for someone who wants to be seen, understood, and adored with sincerity and intensity, Jimin would be the greatest love story of all. Ready for number 5? Number 5, Jungkook, the devoted warrior of the heart. Jungkook's love feels like standing in the middle of a quiet storm, powerful, consuming, but profoundly protective. For someone who grew up under the brightest spotlight imaginable from such a young age, you would think he'd be emotionally guarded, hesitant, or even distant. But the truth is almost the opposite. Jungkook is the type whose loyalty is shaped by his desire to give his best in everything. His love mirrors the way he trains, the way he works, the way he commits to his craft, with an almost obsessive consistency. When Jungkook decides something matters, he doesn't do it halfway. He throws his soul into it. But the reason he sits at number 5 is not because he lacks loyalty. It's because he's still learning how to express it in a world that demands so much maturity from someone who's still navigating who he really is. Jungkook's loyalty shows up in quiet acts, in the kind of details many people might overlook. He's the one who remembers the exact meal you said you liked last week. He's the one who buys small, meaningful gifts instead of grand gestures. He's the one who would walk next to you in silence, just to make sure you're not alone. Anyone who has watched him grow through the years can see how deeply he attaches himself to the people he trusts. His friendships in BTS alone prove the extent of that loyalty. How he clings to the members emotionally, how he seeks comfort from them, how he admires them openly without fear of vulnerability. But romantic love is different. For Jungkook, love is something he wants to get right, something he doesn't want to break, something he respects almost too much. And because of that, he sometimes holds himself back. He worries about not being enough, or being too much, or making mistakes that could hurt the other person. This internal pressure creates a quiet distance, not because he's cold, but because he's so afraid of disappointing someone he truly cares about. Jungkook is the type who would rather take longer to commit than give someone a half-hearted version of himself. He is intensely loyal once he chooses, but he doesn't choose lightly. His heart is selective, almost cautious, but once it locks onto someone, he becomes unwavering. Friends have described him as someone who becomes attached easily yet deeply, someone who values sincerity above everything else. And when he does express love, it's often through actions rather than words. He'll help you carry something heavy without being asked. He'll playfully tease you just to see you smile. He'll stand slightly behind you in a crowd as if instinctively shielding you. Jungkook's loyalty is instinctive, natural, something that kicks in because protecting someone he loves feels as normal as breathing. But here's the twist. Jungkook's biggest struggle in love is balancing his intense devotion with his equally intense need for self-growth. He's constantly trying to improve himself, whether it's singing, dancing, working out, learning new skills, and sometimes he gets lost in the process. That's what places him at number 5. Not a lack of loyalty, but the challenge of managing both love and ambition. Imagine being with someone like Jungkook, someone who might take time to open up, but once he does, he's all in. Someone who watches you with those observant eyes that catch everything you try to hide. Someone who might not always articulate his feelings, but whose presence alone makes you feel safe in a world that doesn't slow down. For those who crave a partner who grows with them and never stops trying, Jungkook is the kind of loyal soul who turns love into a lifelong journey. And now, things are about to get even more surprising. Ready for number 4? Number 4, Jhope. The sunlight you can trust forever. Jhope's love style is like walking into a room filled with warm sunlight after days of rain. Steady, bright, uplifting, and grounding in a way that feels like home. He is one of the most dependable souls in BTS, someone whose loyalty isn't loud or dramatic, but consistent, reliable, and woven into everything he does. If there's one thing everyone agrees on, it's that Jhope doesn't play games when it comes to relationships, of any kind. His loyalty is built on responsibility, on sincerity, and on a deep-rooted desire to protect and nurture the people he loves. But why does someone as loyal as Jhope land at number 4 instead of the top spots? The answer is hidden in the beautiful balance between his optimism and his realism. Jhope loves deeply, but he also loves wisely. He's the type who doesn't let emotions blind him, who doesn't fall into love recklessly, and who doesn't confuse intensity with longevity. His loyalty is deliberate, thoughtful, and mature, something he has cultivated through years of navigating the hardships of being an idol, a leader in practice sessions, a pillar for the members, and an emotional anchor for fans. One of the most unique aspects of Jhope's loyalty is how naturally it blends into his daily life. He's always the one checking in on everyone, making sure no one feels left out, creating harmony in group situations, and turning tense moments into laughter. With him, loyalty isn't a promise, it's a lifestyle. It's in the way he listens without judgment, the way he stays calm even when everything around him feels chaotic, the way he gives comfort through small gestures anyone else might overlook. People who have worked with him often describe him as the person who makes you feel safe without saying a word. That's the magic of Jhope's love. But here's the twist. As loyal as he is, Jhope also has the emotional maturity to know when loyalty becomes self-sacrifice. He won't allow himself to be drained, used, or stuck in unhealthy situations. His love is powerful, but it has healthy boundaries. And believe it or not, that's what places him at number 4. Because while he's incredibly loyal, he is also realistic enough to step away if the relationship stops being safe, respectful, or genuine. Loyalty, to him, has to go both ways. And that's not weakness, it's wisdom. If you look back at interviews, documentaries, and behind-the-scenes moments, it's easy to see how Jhope interacts with others. He notices when someone feels off before they even say anything. He lifts people up with affection that feels sincere rather than performative, and he never hesitates to offer help even when he's tired himself. But romantic loyalty is something he guards closely. Jhope would be the kind of partner who shows love through stability. through routines, through remembering how you like your morning coffee, or noticing when your tone changes, or giving you space when you need to breathe. He wouldn't be dramatic. He wouldn't overwhelm you. His loyalty arrives like dawn, quiet, unwavering, and impossible to ignore. Yet behind that warmth lies a surprising depth, a thoughtful side that speaks through his diary like lyrics, a vulnerability he rarely shows but feels deeply, a hopefulness that carries him through heartbreaks and challenges silently. Imagine being with someone like Jhope, someone who makes you feel lighter just by existing, someone who stands beside you without needing attention, someone who gives love not as a performance, but as an act of genuine care. For those who want a loyal partner who is both emotionally stable and endlessly uplifting, Jhope is a dream disguised as a human being. And if Jhope is only at number 4, can you imagine how intense things are about to get? Shall we continue to number 3? Number 3, Jin, the steadfast guardian of the heart. Jin's love is the kind you don't notice at first, not because it's small, but because it's steady, consistent, and built on a foundation of deep emotional maturity. He doesn't express loyalty with fireworks or dramatic gestures. He expresses it in a kind of everyday reliability that makes a relationship feel safe, rooted, and lasting. The reason Jin ranks at number 3 is simple. His loyalty is as solid as bedrock. It's not shaped by impulse or desire, but by experience, responsibility, and an innate understanding of what it means to care for someone beyond surface-level affection. Jin is the kind of person who, even in a world that changes every second, remains constant. His loyalty doesn't waver with mood swings. It doesn't crumble when things get difficult. It doesn't fade when emotions get complicated. Jin learned early on that love isn't about dramatic moments. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's not glamorous. His loyalty comes from this calm, grounded perspective. He's practical. He's emotionally intelligent. And more importantly, he knows how to differentiate between fleeting emotions and long-term commitment. Throughout BTS's journey, Jin has always carried himself like someone who understands the weight of responsibility. When things get stressful, he's the one who cracks a joke, not to ignore the issue, but to ease the pressure. When someone is hurting, he's the silent supporter who stays close until the person feels safe. When decisions need to be made, he doesn't rush. He considers them carefully. This sense of maturity transforms him into an incredibly loyal partner, the type you can trust with your fears, your secrets, your dreams, and even your insecurities. But why isn't Jin number 1 if he's so dependable? Because his loyalty is deeply tied to his personal principles, and that means he won't compromise those values even for love. If something violates his boundaries or threatens his ability to stay true to himself, he steps back. He's loyal, but he's also proud, dignified, and self-aware. And this balance is what makes him so compelling. Jin is not the type to get swept away by romance. He's attracted to meaningful connection, mutual respect, and emotional stability. He would rather build a relationship slowly than rush something he can't sustain. And once he commits, he becomes that immovable force in someone's life, the person who brings peace instead of chaos, comfort instead of confusion. There's a reason people often describe Jin as someone who takes care of others without making a big show of it. That's how he loves, too. Subtle but powerful. Quiet but overflowing with intention. Imagine being loved by Jin. Someone who notices when you look tired and hands you a snack before you even ask. Someone who makes you laugh when you're spiraling. Someone who protects your heart not with dramatic speeches, but with consistent kindness. Someone who gives love in the form of reliability, respect, and everyday devotion. Jin's brand of loyalty is the kind that doesn't fade. The kind that doesn't need proving. The kind built to last. And if he's only at number 3, then the top 2 are about to get unbelievably intense. Number 2, Suga. The silent devotion that never breaks. If loyalty had a heartbeat, steady, calm, unshakable, it would sound exactly like Suga. He isn't the loudest member, nor the most outwardly affectionate. He doesn't shower you with dramatic confessions or exaggerated romantic gestures. But beneath that quiet exterior lies one of the most loyal, dependable, and emotionally anchored hearts in BTS. And the truth is, once Suga lets someone into his life, he will protect that bond with a strength that borders on unbreakable. Suga sits at number 2 not because he is almost the most loyal, but because his loyalty is so deep, so stable, and so deliberate that it feels like a vow he makes silently to himself. He takes love seriously. He doesn't play around. He doesn't overpromise. He doesn't pretend to be someone he's not. Instead, he shows loyalty in the most mature way, through consistency, communication, and unwavering presence. One of the most compelling things about Suga is that he loves like someone who has experienced the weight of loneliness. He understands pain, understands silence, understands the importance of emotional space. And because of that understanding, his loyalty becomes incredibly powerful. He doesn't judge. He doesn't pressure. He doesn't demand perfection. He gives love room to breathe because he knows suffocating someone emotionally only pushes them away. Yet, if anything threatens someone he loves, Suga becomes surprisingly fierce. There's a protectiveness in him that doesn't show often, but when it does, it's raw, intense, and absolutely resolute. He hates seeing people he loves hurt. He hates dishonesty. He hates betrayal. And if he commits himself to someone romantically, he expects honesty, respect, and mutual trust in return. Suga's loyalty is also deeply connected to his authenticity. He's painfully honest about his struggles, his anxiety, his insecurities, his moments of emotional exhaustion. But this honesty makes him one of the most reliable partners imaginable. He doesn't hide behind masks. He doesn't pretend. He doesn't manipulate. If he loves you, you will know it in the way he listens to your words, the way he remembers the things you thought were insignificant, the way he respects your boundaries, and the way he builds a connection that feels safe instead of chaotic. And unlike some people who crumble under emotional weight, Suga is someone who becomes calmer when love gets complicated. He thinks before reacting. He solves problems instead of ignoring them. He prefers real conversations over guessing games. That is where his loyalty becomes almost unmatched. But here's the one thing that keeps him from number 1. Suga protects himself just as fiercely as he protects others. If a relationship threatens his emotional stability, if it crosses boundaries he can't accept, if it becomes something that drains him instead of strengthening him, he pulls away quietly, decisively, and without looking back. His loyalty is absolute until it becomes self-destructive. And in that moment, he prioritizes survival, not sacrifice. Yet, anyone lucky enough to receive his love before that threshold is crossed will experience a devotion so stable it feels eternal. Imagine being with someone like Suga, someone who calls you out gently when you're running from your feelings, someone who sits next to you during bad days just to share the silence, someone who shows love through reliability, not noise, someone who chooses you every day not because he has to, but because he wants to, someone who gives affection with sincerity instead of performance. His love isn't fragile. His loyalty isn't conditional. His presence isn't temporary. Suga loves only when he's sure, and when he's sure, he stays. Calmly, quietly, completely. And now we arrive at the final, most unexpected spot. If Suga is number 2, then who in the world takes number 1 as the most loyal member of BTS in love? Number 1, RM, the unshakable anchor who loves with his entire soul. Here it is, the most unexpected, the most surprising, the most emotionally profound revelation of this entire list. RM, the thoughtful leader, the philosophical writer, the intellectual dreamer, the man who carries the weight of the world with steady hands, stands at number 1 as the most loyal member of BTS in love. And if you think about it deeply, it makes perfect sense. RM's loyalty is not loud, not performative, not decorative. It's carved from the very core of who he is. He is the type of man who thinks before he speaks, who reflects before he commits, who chooses carefully and stays wholeheartedly. In love, RM is unwavering, not because he is perfect, but because he understands the gravity of emotional responsibility better than anyone else. He has lived through the pain of being misunderstood, the pressure of leadership, the loneliness of carrying burdens silently. And these experiences have shaped him into a partner who loves with wisdom, maturity, and a sincerity that cuts through every noise around him. What sets RM above everyone else is the way he approaches relationships with intention. He doesn't love impulsively. He doesn't give his heart carelessly. He doesn't fall for temporary attention or fleeting affection. He loves through understanding, deep, studied, genuine understanding. Once he decides someone is worthy of his heart, he becomes unbelievably devoted. His loyalty becomes a promise he writes into the architecture of his life. Not because he feels obligated, but because he deeply believes in the person he loves. And unlike others who might struggle balancing their internal battles with relationships, RM channels every challenge, every insecurity, every moment of vulnerability into becoming a better partner. Look at his lyrics. Look at his interviews. Look at the way he talks about love, trust, and connection. He doesn't speak about romance like a fantasy. He speaks about it like a lifelong practice. Something you nurture, something you protect, something you choose again and again. RM is the type of man who stays even when things get difficult, who talks things out instead of shutting down, who works through emotions instead of running away from them. He listens, truly listens. He wants to understand your fears, your hopes, your history, your softness, your sharp edges. And when he loves, he integrates you into his world so seamlessly that you feel like you've always belonged there. RM's loyalty shows in the way he values commitment, the way he prioritizes personal growth, the way he stands by the people who stand by him. Friends say he remains connected for years, checking in even when schedules are impossible, showing up in the smallest yet most meaningful ways. That's how he loves romantically, too. Quiet gestures, deep conversations, steady presence, true commitment. But what truly locks RM into the #1 position is this. He is a man who does not give up on people easily. He fights for relationships, carefully, patiently, wholeheartedly. He repairs instead of replaces. He reflects instead of blaming. He stays instead of disappearing. And even when he makes mistakes, he takes responsibility for them with honesty few people can match. RM might look calm on the surface, but his loyalty is a storm of devotion beneath it. A storm he controls with wisdom, patience, and maturity far beyond his years. Imagine being loved by RM, someone who holds your dreams with the same gentleness he holds his own. Someone who writes you into the margins of his thoughts. Someone who stands beside you when the world feels impossible. Someone who chooses you not just in moments of joy, but in moments of silence, doubt, and vulnerability. Someone whose loyalty is not a reaction but a principle. RM as #1 isn't just a surprise, it's a revelation. A reminder that the strongest love is not always the loudest, but the most consistent, the most thoughtful, the most enduring. And in the universe of BTS, where every member loves deeply in their own way, RM stands as the unshakable anchor, the man whose loyalty could hold an entire world together.